It's no secret that the Indian telecom sector is in pain. From an era of boom, we are now in a situation of coming down to three major players, of which only one seems assured of flourishing as of now. Intense competition, a recent Supreme Court ruling and government policy has brought this sector to a cliff's edge. In the latest, a war of words has broken out, with Reliance Jio, the dominant player, taking on Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea over their demands for government help, comparing their appeals to shedding of crocodile tears. So the gloves are now off, and at stake is the very survival of the telecom industry as we know it. Helping us take a deep dive into the telecom sector today are stalwarts from the business. I'm pleased to be joined today by Sanjay Kapoor, former CEO of Bharti Airtel, SS Sirohi, former member of the Telecom Commission, Mahesh Uppal, Telecom Analyst, and A. Ramachandran, Senior Partner at EMA Partners. Welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us today. Sanjay, let me start by just asking for you to set the tone. Why are we seeing the telecom sector in such a poor condition today? What have been the two or three major reasons for its current very fragile situation?
I think there are multiple reasons for our current situation, and I think it all began with India actually getting into a wrong structure for the industry per se, where we had more than 10 players combating in the marketplace for market share, and we knew from those days that there was no viable business case for so many telecom service providers in the market. After we proved that yes, this is not a perfect competition structure that can be sustained, there was withdrawal of some and there were closure of some others, but we finally attained an oligopoly structure, which probably is a more proven structure across the globe. And then it was by and large 4 players left in the market, with BSNL, MTNL really not competing because they were out of the data and 4G era completely. That brought in 3 players in the market, and those 3 players obviously had a fair chance to combat in the market. But I think where we went wrong as incumbents was we absolutely misread the advancement of 4G in the marketplace, and that's where the challenger in the marketplace actually put a checkmate and came with a very strong aspiration in the market, spent in billions of dollars, and then a voice, which was a very dominant revenue earner for the telecom operators, was virtually perceived to be free in the market, and therefore that challenged the entire pricing structure and go-to-market structure. Clubbed with all this, the problem of technology now not lasting 10 years but lasting 5 years. So no matter what the size of your balance sheet is, the amount of investment that you need to make is absolutely similar to the top guy in the market. And more importantly, what has happened is that as the technological advancement has happened, the market has moved from rolling out networks to managing customer experience, especially on data. And with a $1.50 ARPU market, because we are at such low down prices, there is no way that we can offer a customer experience that can be globally competitive. And finally, the nail in the coffin really comes from the input prices. With these low tariffs in the market and ARPUs in the market, we cannot afford to have a spectrum which is uniquely priced compared to rest of the world, and so dearly priced that there's no country that comes close to it. And to add more fuel to the fire, despite of a market discovered price, the levies that the government really puts on to the telecom operators in terms of revenue share, in terms of SUC, in terms of GST, etc., are so heavy that any balance sheet in the market, and with a leverage of over 700,000 crores for the industry, there's no way this industry is in a shape to offer a customer experience, keep contemporary with the technology, and have balance sheets that can really return the borrowed capital.
Okay, thanks for putting that together, so succinctly, Sanjay. And now let me open it up and see if the rest of the panel agrees with some of your points. Mr. Uppal, one of the key triggers for this kind of vulnerability in the sector has come after one dominant player came in with a large amount of capital, and suddenly the prices got very competitive. The others were caught, I don't want to say napping, but they were caught off guard at the very least. Today this player says, don't complain if you can't compete. What in this case should be the policymakers' role?
Well, there are two things. There is the health of the players and there is the issue of the health of the sector. It is usually not at odds in most regulatory regimes and most different countries, but in our country, for some reason, because of mistakes made at various levels, including policy, including incumbents, we have the situation where we have to worry about the fate of the players because the fate of the sector itself hangs in balance. Now, there is no doubt that the incumbents have made a mistake or made mistakes, particularly in their inability to anticipate what a new player in the market such as Jio would do if it was wanting to have a substantial market share.
Yeah.
And if they had done that calculation sufficiently thoroughly, they would have figured out that price it would be a very key element of all this, particularly because the incumbent had been sitting on spectrum which was worth several $1 billion, and so it was unrealistic of them to think that this kind of aggressive pricing would not happen. And precisely because of that, because of their inability to anticipate it, inability to have a pricing structure which could prevent that kind of challenge to them on prices, they are now badly stuck. Now, the truth is that the country does need infrastructure, the country does need competition, the country does need choice for consumers, and of course, we have huge unmet goals, if you like.
Right.
We still do not have, half the country does not use data, and so on and so forth. So I think for the government, the objective must be clear, that we need at least a couple of players in the market.
Yeah.
We certainly need to worry about the health of the sector because, the implications are for the whole economy.
Now, the couple of players point is interesting.
Does that
because
answer your question?
Which couple of players? And as per, the latest, there have been two sets of letters. I'm going to turn to my guest in the studio, Mr. Ramachandran. As per the two sets of letters from Reliance Jio, today and yesterday, one to the Telecom Ministry, one to COAI. They think that these incumbents, and specifically Bharti Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, let's name who we're talking about, are just crocodile tears. And secondly, even if they sort of fade into the night, it's okay because, you have MTNL, BSNL and others will come in. Entry prices are less.
I'll tell you what.
So which couple of players?
I'm trying hard to look at positives in this sector and I'm failing to see any.
Wow.
Okay. It's a challenge. When, as Sanjay said, when telecom liberalization happened, we had so many players who were there. Consolidation rightly happened, right? And we are left, the sector is littered with corpse of, foreign players who had come in. Okay, Telenor or, Etisalat, or you can talk of a couple of other Systema of late. So the sector is in a bad shape. And for the sector to survive, we should have competition. We rightly moved to oligopoly. But after that, I don't see anything much happening. Who are the two players who are going to be there? I don't see BSNL, MTNL combination is going to be the right competition.
No, they have to figure out how to pay their salaries first.
Exactly. So it's going to be a trouble. So it's going to be a challenge for both Bharti Airtel as well as for Vodafone to figure out, how they are going to get out of this mess. And the government, I believe, should step in to figure a way around this. Else, it's going to be a challenge.
Oh, Mr. Sirohi, do you think it's time now for policymakers, for the government specifically, to set in? There is now, they've announced a panel of secretaries who will be looking at the entire sector. But do you think that some sort of a bailout or at least a leeway on license fees, etc., for the players that are bleeding is required?
So there are two issues because of one is that they say that they are not able to pay the dues which are due to the government and as mandated by Supreme Court, and that is why they are feeling some heat and all that. Another is that as a whole telecom sector is highly taxed, so it has to have some kind of a relief in terms of less of taxation. So there is no denying the fact that once the Supreme Court judgment is out, I'm sure the government will not be will have to take the money, and as the Supreme Court has given the 3 months time, so all the operators, concerned operators, will have to pay back the dues of the government. How they pay back? They are all multinationals, big companies backed by foreign promoters, and they have a big business elsewhere in other countries as well as here. So they can certainly find money for paying their dues, and also whatever is required for investing in the infrastructure, which for modernizing the infrastructure. Now the question comes that there is a lot of hue and cry. There is a lot of hue and cry regarding the very great stress in the sector. I don't agree with this at all. This is a typical business cycle. This is a very business which is basically capital intensive business, telecom business, and all the three private players are very large, big players. They are almost have an equal market share, almost, in terms of consumers, in terms of revenue. And you will appreciate one thing, that in 2010 their gross revenue was 1,44,000 crore or so. Now in 2018-19 it has increased to 225 lakh crores. So where is the stress? These are the typical business cycle dips, and all big companies, all the well managed companies, well financially managed, otherwise managed, always take care of these aspects, and they always survive all these small disturbances. So to say, I think these companies are misleading the government. There is no such thing at all. It's a very healthy competition going on, rather it has stabilized. Now the revenue has started increasing. If you see today result of Q2, I've been told that it has the ARPU of subscriber has increased to 128. So it is a 28% increase, I read in the newspaper. So now that whatever minor stress was being seen because of the heat of the competition, of the because of the new entrant, it has stabilized, it has bottomed out. Now it started growing. In another 1 year, you will see everything is hunky dory and they will be able to manage. The only thing is they have to bring funds for investing in the new technology. If they will not do it, because new technology gives cost efficiency, it gives new services, it gives better customer experience, it gives new revenue streams. If you don't do it, how can you prosper in the fast changing, rapid technology scenario?
Let me, now that we've got everyone's opening comments, let me open it up, and please indicate if you want to come in with a point. Just a response to Mr. Sirohi. Sanjay, you want to go first? This is a normal business cycle. Bring in the money, invest it, and you will ride it out. Where is the stress, he says?
I think we are looking at a very linear formula. These businesses are very non-linear in the way that they are operated, and I have had the opportunity of being an operator for a very large part of my life, and I can tell you it's not as easy as it sounds. All the investors in the market are looking at businesses that are sustainable and that have a return, at least in the long run, if not in the short run. But this is an industry which has actually not returned capital back to anybody. Yes, you can talk about market capitalizations at odd stages in the life cycle, but nobody is really taken the cash back home out of these businesses, for a simple reason that the technology now shifts very quickly. What lasted us 10 years now lasts us 4 years. And the problem with this industry is that when this was a 2G and 3G play, At that time, the whole ecosystem that operated in the market
Right.
garnered about 65-66% of the revenues for the service providers. But the moment we started moving to data and 4G, that share from 65% fell to 40%. The problem going forward with 5G, and whichever countries have rolled out 5G up to now, and it's very early days, I would say, it doesn't look like even 40% is going to be sustainable. It will probably fall down to 30%, because there are device guys, there are security guys, there are content guys, there are services guys, there are digital application guys who are garnering bulk of the revenues out of this industry.
Right.
And the biggest problem is with the consumer. As the form factor in this industry changes from a standard definition to a high definition, from a high definition to a 4K, you might be consuming 20x, 50x of data for the same movie that you watch, but the customer is not willing to pay you a 50x growth on the ARPUs. For the increase that even Korea has recently had on 5G, while the data consumption has doubled, but the revenues have only gone up by 0.4%. If that is the equation of providing services, this business is not going to return capital. So it's not a question of, are there deep pockets in the world? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But if they look at a business case which is hinging on $1.50 and a return that doesn't seem to be coming, why will somebody invest in this country? I mean, I work with so many telcos across the globe, and I can tell you that even in markets which have a $20 ARPU, the third player finds it very difficult to survive.
Okay, quick response from Mr. Mahesh Uppal. Then I'll come to you, Rama. Quick response from Mr. Mahesh Uppal.
Yeah. No, I agree with Sanjay, and I also see the point that Mr. Sirohi is making. I have no doubt in my mind that the incumbents have made mistakes both at the pricing level, on pricing as well as on technology.
Yeah.
But like the real issue is, what is the overall health of the telecom sector and what our concerns should be. If you recall, in 1999, there was a very similar situation. When the government intervened in the sector, the operators who had bid for 2G spectrum license, 2G licenses, were finding it impossible to pay the fees that they had bid. And eventually there was a realization that a large-scale default by the companies would have a spiral effect on a whole lot of other things. And this is something that would be totally counterproductive from the point of view of the country itself. So a very important and a very strategic decision was taken to ensure that the sector survived. A certain package was created. This country moved from license fees to revenue sharing, etc. So an intervention was made by the government to ensure the health of the sector, and that intervention is precisely what led to where we are today. We have extremely high penetration of mobile services, a very significant penetration of data services. So we must recognize that irrespective of the faults that the market players have had, that there is a separate case to deal with the fact that there is a threat to the telecom sector as a whole. There is a threat to investments, there is a threat to profitability, there is a threat to the expansion of networks. We still do not have the kind of data speeds the world has. We still do not have the kind of internet access the world has, despite having very high so we really do need investments. We need a much more viable telecom sector than it currently is, and has even worsened now post the AGR's decision by the Supreme Court. So clearly there is an issue, and the government's intervention, if it does not take place, in my humble opinion, we are going to see even more trouble. So I don't think the issue is about blame. I don't think the point is that the people who are going to be needing support are people who are necessarily innocent. That is not my point. But that their health
so then let me come
and
to
the
the point.
sector's health
Let me come to the
and
basic
the country's
question
economy are linked, whether we recognize it or not.
Yes, let me come to the basic question then. If we are assuming, Rama, that these
Sure.
these players have made mistakes. There is now a player maybe with deeper pockets or whatever the case may be that is now a dominant player. Should they then be bailed out, and then why?
What mistakes are we talking of here? What mistakes are we talking of? Let's list down the mistakes.
They didn't see the fact coming that voice is not going to be the largest revenue
Oh, come
stream.
on, the
That's
business
something which is
moves,
pointed
right?
out.
Business moves.
Yeah.
Right, what businesses today is not going to be there, in another 2 to 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Technology is moving fast.
Yeah.
Sanjay made this point very clearly, right? What is technology today is not going to be technology 3 years hence. What this mobile was used for, okay, maybe even 5 years back, what are we using this for?
No, the question is that technology changes. Is it the government's problem to bail out every company which doesn't keep up?
See, it is not about bailing out in terms of technology change. We are talking about a revenue share issue here. What is the Supreme Court judgment?
Yeah.
Supreme Court is talking about a revenue share.
Yeah.
Okay, and they have changed the definition of the revenue share, and hence all these issues have come up.
No, the issues were there even before the Supreme Court judgment.
Right.
This is like the last straw on the camel's back.
That's right.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I mean, my perspective is government would need to step in if this sector should have more than one player or two players. Else, the sector is going to go through its own pain.
Yeah.
It's going to be really difficult for this sector to come up. Look at the number of, I come from an industry, which hires, senior leaders. Sanjay will stand testimony to this. 10, 12 years back when we were hiring for the sector, we used to get best in class talent for this sector. Today the kind of talent that wants to join this sector, I don't see too many of them jumping or lining up to join this sector.
Yeah. No, I mean, the employment aspect of it is another huge one about whether we will lose a large number of jobs. But all of it stems from the same question of whether you need government intervention or not, which is likely to come. Mr. Siroi, the other counter is that if you're down to maybe one large private player and then one government player, who's going to participate in the next round of auctions?
Exactly.
I don't agree with all these suggestions. Let me tell you, all these operators will survive. So people are just raising a wrong false bogey just to extract some mileage and some doles from the government. And the government, as far as I think, the government, I don't think will be yielding to this pressure. However, for future, this thing, as Sanjay was telling, that technology is changing so fast and it is becoming a more and more capital intensive industry. So we need more and more funds. Large and large funds. So for such purposes, for future, for prospectively, the government may consider for reducing certain levies like USOF or SUC charges prospectively, and also in the process they may ask as has been they have already set up the committee of secretaries to look into it, and they have said in that even TRAI can look into the setting up the floor price for, although they have set voice and data, but I don't agree with voice because voice is very counterproductive if you are putting the floor price. However, for data, there is a good possibility. If they put a floor price on data, it will really release a lot of money into the sector, and that will take care of it. I would say in a 1 year time frame, the situation will change.
Well,
and this is something which is doable because the data prices have reduced from almost 2-3 years back. They were 3,000
Sanjay wants to come in.
Sanjay
wants to come in. Yes.
Now they have gone to 8 GB.
Yes. Let's just Sanjay come in. He was coming in, I think, on your data point. And Sanjay, you want to come in? Is this a market which can tolerate a price increase effectively?
I will just touch upon that price increase very, very shortly. But I think we are looking at it very parochially if we think this is about survival of 2 or 3 players who are incumbents and in distress.
Yeah.
This is not about that. The telecom infrastructure is now beyond the realms of only access providers. There are all types of businesses that hinge upon these infrastructure providers to carry on their businesses. So whether it's e-commerce or startups or health or insurance, all businesses hinge upon all this. And this is not about the competitiveness and survival of the industry alone. It is about India's competitiveness to the rest of the world. If the industry collapses, India's competitiveness on digital with the rest of the world becomes a question mark. So there's no way we can allow this to go down. And if we believe that only one company surviving in this business is best for India and best for the consumer, I will reserve my comments completely. Right? I think it requires a competition amongst a few people to make sure that the consumer gets the right experience. Otherwise, the consumer will continue to get what he is getting today, which is not competitive globally.
No, it's not.
That is as far as, looking at the entire canvas is concerned. Now let me come down to your question about the data prices.
Yes.
Yes, of course. I have been advocating from the very beginning that $1.50 ARPU is absolutely unsustainable. No matter how brave we sound and the rhetoric that we make in the marketplace, no technology and experience can actually be sustainable on $1.50 ARPU. This will have to substantially go up if the consumer is really looking for a great experience and world-class experience. We will have to cough up more money, and without that we will not be able to get the services that we are looking for and the experience that we are looking for.
Is that feasible, Rama?
The
you
final
think in this market?
Survival in the market and winner in the market
Yeah.
is not going to get determined by price but by experience.
Well, we're still at the phase, I think, where you're still reaching out to a lot of people. You're still expanding your footprint.
See, I'll tell you
And
what.
competition has not improved the experience either, I just may add.
We still crib about, and we will continue to crib about, call drops and
terrible.
all those stuff, and that will continue to happen. And that is because, organizations don't have money to invest in the sector to upgrade the cell sites and stuff like that. So they don't do that, right? Or they do it in a limited fashion. To increase the data prices, I'm not too sure whether it's a question of who is going to bite the bullet. But like Sanjay says, if they don't, the sector by itself will collapse.
It seems like a tough call for any government to allow.
It is.
Is just my point.
See,
It might be
point
easier to
here,
defer license fees and payments than to allow data prices to go
what
up.
has come out of all these things, if at all, I started by saying that I'm trying to look at positive. The only positive that I'm trying to see somewhere as a glimmer is, there has been an increase in digital inclusion.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
that is the only positive that I am seeing in all this murk that is surrounding this sector. Right, has it reached the level of, optimum level? Obviously no. Okay, can we improve? Yes, we can improve, but we have a long way to go.
Well, digital inclusion is a big silver lining, and I think from a policy perspective, it's not something that any government would give up on. We'll have to see how the costs to the sector weigh in on that big picture. That's all the time I have, but I want to thank all of you for coming in with your perspective and all the decades of experience you bring to the sector. And hopefully our viewers have benefited from this deep dive into what exactly is going on in the telecom industry right now. It's completely imperative that it survives and there is enough competition so that consumers can switch when one player is just not good enough. With that, I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening on the India Development Debate. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night.